Hello and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Friday, November 3rd, 2017, and this is episode 37. My name is Carol and I am known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry. The show notes for this and every episode can be found on the blog, and they can also be found in the episode thread in the Ravelry group. So come by, join in the conversation, and if you like, you can take part in the Agatha Christie Along, which is very casual, knit along, crochet along. I am hosting in conjunction with reading my way through my Agatha Christie collection. I think I'm only about 25 to 30% through, so it's going to be running for a long time. Every month I draw a prize for all of those who have entered or submitted a completed object anywhere from the beginning to the end of the knit along. And it happens to be the beginning of the month, so I am going to draw October's winner. The random number generator chose Meveringham, or Marilyn, for her Miss Lemon socks. That was a project that was very early in the knit along, so you see you could win anytime. Now, I say M. Everingham. I've always assumed that's how you pronounce it. It is Marilyn, and I'm assuming it's Marilyn Everingham. And if I'm wrong, then please correct me. In any case, Marilyn, please get hold of me on Ravelry and let me know which Ravelry or which pattern you would like, up to a value of $10 US that is giftable on Ravelry, and I'll get that into your Ravelry inbox right away. So congratulations, and thank you for taking part in the knit along and being such an active participant. Marilyn's knit more than one object for it, so thank you. So before we get going with today's episode, I'm going to give you a little glimpse of my world today. Not surprisingly, the feeders have been busy today. There is a northern flicker there eating the finch food, which is niter seed and shelled sunflower seeds. And then on the ground, you can see a little junco there. It used to be called the Oregon junco. Now it's called the dark-eyed junco, I believe. And then at the base of the feeder, there's a dove that is, I think it's a Eurasian ringed dove, I think. And that is a species that's only recently become popular here. A few years ago, there were a few sightings, and then since then, they've really taken off, and they're all over the place. There's a few more juncos that have joined the others under the feeder. And there's, I think, a junco on the suet feeder there. It's hard to tell from here. It's kind of dark. And then you can see the northern flicker continuing to eat away at the seeds. That one, actually, the flicker quite often eats the suet. So yeah, there's a little taste of my bird feeders today. There you can see some other seeds getting some attention there. The cover there is both to keep the seed dry and also to keep the bigger birds like the starlings off of those seeds. Speaking of starlings, just landed there at the top of the feeder. They're kind of a nuisance birds, to be honest. They eat a lot of seed, and they're just, they're not my favorite birds, that's for sure. Yeah, so there you go. Little taste of my backyard feeders. Bring it out. As you can see, we've had our first snowfall of the season. It even though it was predicted, I think it took everyone a little bit by surprise by just how much snow we got. Down here on the valley floor, we didn't get that much, but on our surrounding hills, I think they got about 6 inches. And that caused some traffic problems with the people heading home from work yesterday, caught without their snow tires. Actually, my husband had just said earlier this week that he needs to get his on, and he's got them scheduled for Saturday, which is a couple of days too late, although he was fine with his all-weather tires. The roads that he was driving on yesterday were fine. And as I say, down here on the valley floor, we didn't get that much snow, just enough to give a nice little dusting. But my sister actually was heading home from work and got to the bottom of the hill, and there had been somebody hadn't made it up or made it down the hill, and there was quite a backup of traffic, so she just turned around and headed over to my house and spent a couple of hours here and let everything kind of get back to normal, and then headed home. I wasn't here, but she gave me a call, let me know she was letting herself in, and then my husband arrived not too long after, and they had a nice visit. So yeah, let's get started now. Well, actually, I should say it's a really good day to be drinking tea, and I've chosen my lovely snowflake mug that my daughter gave me a number of years ago. This is the perfect mug for like hot chocolate or for anything on a snowy day. Today I'm actually drinking a new tea from David's Tea that I hadn't tried before last week. It's called Nepal Black. I had earned my points had earned me free 50 grams of tea, and based on my preferences, the customer service salesperson, I don't know, the lady behind the counter recommended this tea. She said partly because she knew I obviously liked black teas, and also she said it's a more expensive one, so I might as well use my free tea points to get that. And it's actually very nice, so I'm glad she recommended it. It's something I would definitely purchase in the future. So today's episode is going to feature what I'm wearing / a blast from the past. I have several works in progress. I'm going to talk about an upcoming project, a little bit about what I'm reading, and it's been kind of a busy week, so I've got lots to talk about there too. So settle in, grab your own beverage of choice, and let's get going. Full disclosure, I haven't had lunch yet. I think it's after 2 in the afternoon, and I really should have stopped to eat, but once I was all ready to podcast, I didn't want to wait anymore. So try and get through this quick so I can get my lunch because I'm kind of hungry. So first up is what I'm wearing, or a blast from the past. So I am wearing a sweater that I knit. I started it in February 2015, and I put it down for a while and didn't finish it again until the following January 2016. But this seemed very appropriate for today. It's called the Winter Weeds Cardigan. It is by Katya Gorbacheva, and I knit it in Cascade 220 Heathers in color 9559 Pale Blue Heather. In truth, it's actually almost more of a pale gray with a bit of a lavender tinge to it. Now, this sweater is kind of like a mullet. It is all business in the front and party in the back. So I'm going to show you. You can see it is a raglan sweater. It's knit from the bottom up. It has a reverse stockinette sleeve, a stockinette panel at the front which rolls, has a rolled collar, and then that is bordered by a reverse stockinette the rest of the body. And here's where the interesting part happens. I'm going to turn around and show you this beautiful, beautiful weeds pattern. It's like bubbles and twisted stitches. Let's see how much you can see. There, if I go with my tippy toes. I think that gives you a pretty good look at it. So when I saw this on Ravelry, I just knew I wanted to knit this sweater. And it definitely was, well, not challenging so much as difficult, but you had to pay attention to every row in order to create that weed pattern. Now, I took it out this morning to put it on. Well, I guess not even this morning. It's early this afternoon. To put it on for the podcast, and found that a little critter had been chomping at it. So I actually had to fix a hole that was right here on the front bodice. You can probably see a little bit here, or front border, I guess. You can see a little bit. It's not completely smooth here, but I did some sweater surgery, and I'm actually quite pleased with how it turned out. And I think I will be able to take the tapestry needle and even out these stitches a little bit more afterwards and block it a little bit. So in general, I think it's one of those things that unless you really point out to somebody, they wouldn't really see. Let's hope so anyway, or I'm just going to keep telling myself that. So my first project are just my plain stockinette socks. Here is the first sock, and it is knit from Black Cat custom yarn in Everyday Sock. And this is the Sedona colorway. So last week I showed you that I had finished one and I had a little bit done on my second. So I had some car knitting time this week and babysitting time this week. And so I got quite a bit more done. I've turned the heel and working my way now up the foot. As you can see, this yarn has pooled in quite a different way than the first sock. This one was more spirally, and this one is more flashy and pooly. So I have to say I don't like it quite as much as the first sock, but honestly I wasn't about to rip it back and try and make it a duplicate. It's, you know, has lots of things to do with where you start your yarn and the knitting tension that you're achieving. And I know there's been some looser and some tighter knitting going on this one. So it is what it is. Once they're on my feet, under my jeans and in my shoes, no one's going to see them anyways except me. And I just really like the colors. I think it's a fun yarn. So despite not loving pooling, or not loving the pooling and the flashing on this one, I'm still enjoying the knit. Pardon me. Just going to move that up here so it doesn't fall. My next project I'm going to show you is just give you a little bit of an update on my mitered square sock yarn blanket, because I've got quite a bit more done. Last week I had left off at this square here, and since then I've put in 10 more squares. So I'll run those by you. That would be the patterned and the plain in each row here. There, I just finished this one this morning. So I just have another patterned one to do here, and a little half square or triangle to do along the side. And then my blanket will have reached the length that I'm looking for. And all that will be left to do is to fill in all these little triangles along the top and the bottom of the blanket. So I'm getting excited to see it so close to being done. I know it's still a little ways from being finished, but I think that'll really give me a lot of motivation to work on it some more. I've really been enjoying getting back to this, and this week I kind of needed, mostly what I needed was some fairly simple knitting, and so I've enjoyed that. My third work in progress is my Chimera cardigan by Carol Feller. Here's a little bit of a refresher of what it looks like. I am knitting it from Cake Worsted from Blue Moon Fiber Arts, and as you can see, it's in the Bittersweet colorway. This is a knit along that Carol Feller's hosting, and she's releasing the clues at various points along the way. So last Saturday, clue 3 was released. So I have worked on it a little bit this week. I haven't had, it's been a little bit more pay attention to knitting than I could handle for most of the week. But as you can see, I showed you last week, basically I had a shrug because you constructed this back panel first and then knit the bodice or the yoke and the sleeves. So that step 3 was to pick up all along the bottom of that shrug, and now we are knitting our way down the body. Let's turn it this way. So it's hard to hold up because it's sort of a short, plus it's not on really long needles. So as you can see, just fan that out a little bit. Going down the body, you have sections of the stitch pattern, this textured stitch pattern, and they are separated, and then you can see it goes down. The back panel continues down the back, and then they are separated by a section of stockinette stitch. So you still have to pay attention to every row because the stitch pattern you have to do the stitch pattern on right side and wrong side rows. Pay attention to a chart. And then this is going to be an A-line cardigan. So I've done my first set of increases, and you increase here along where the where the front panel ends and then where the back panel begins. So at each of these points is where you increase, so you end up with 4 increases per row, every so many rows. So eventually it'll be an A-line cardigan. So I'm happy with how that is coming along. I'm looking forward to doing more work on that this week. Clue 4 comes out next Saturday. So I would like to be ready for it when it's released. Also then have a chance to wear this cardigan this fall while it's still actually fall. And then I have one last project to show you. I don't have the pattern page to show you because I didn't really print off a good picture. But last week I showed you some yarn that I had bought with my sister Janine in mind, called it was Kinfolk Yarn and Fiber, and it was Steadfast Sock in the Tea at the Empress Hotel colorway. The Empress Hotel is in Victoria, British Columbia, and my sister has gone a number of times with her husband to the Empress to have afternoon tea. So when I saw this colorway, not only did the name stand out, but also the colors in it just screamed Janine. So here's a look at the cake. You can see it, some purples and blues and greens, various shades. So when I went searching on Ravelry, my first thought was to see if there were any shawls. Well, that's what I wanted to make, was a shawl. And I thought, wondered if there were any shawls with a Victoria theme, because that seemed like it would relate. And so I had put Victoria and shawl into the search engine on Ravelry for the patterns, and I didn't see anything that really caught my eye. And so the next thing I put in was tea and shawl. And one of the patterns that came up was called Afternoon Tea by Helen Stewart. I know this show must seem like the Helen Stewart and Carol Feller knitting hour, because if you've watched for any length of time, you know that I've knit a number of patterns by both those designers, but it's just they happen to appeal to my aesthetic, and this year has definitely been heavy on both of those designers. In any case, it seemed like the perfect pattern. And so it was a free pattern in Knitty, actually. And so I downloaded that and got going. So I'll show you what I've done so far. It's just on a short needle, so it's a little bit difficult. So it's a semicircular shawl, like a half pie shawl. And the first part of it is this trellis pattern. So you can see possibly the lines of increases that happen every so often. And I have just done the last set of increases and begun the I think they call it the branches, something about branches pattern. I'll put it here. And it's a little bit hard to show you. Sorry, it's just because it's on such a short needle, it's a bit hard to manipulate. I'll see if I can. There you go. So that's the lace pattern that's begun, and that's one repeat. Now with the amount of yarn that I have, I've figured out that I'm going to be able to do at least one more of these repeats than the pattern calls for before doing the border. So it should be a decent size shawl to just use as a shawlette or a scarf. And Janine does seem to like those. I would have knit socks out of this, except that she's not really big on hand knit socks. So, but she does seem to like the shawls that I've knit her so far. So that's my that's why I decided to go with that. And her birthday is in November, and I imagine we'll be getting together as a family pretty soon to celebrate our fall birthdays. And so I'm hoping to have that done by the time we get together. Not really knowing when that is, but I'd say I'm a good halfway through it in just a few days, so I should be okay. So I'm going to take another sip of tea. I feel like I may be coming down with something. I've got a little bit of a scratchy throat, and just I know it's fall/winter cold season, and I feel like I'm just possibly coming down with one. I'm feeling a little bit discombobulated today, so forgive me for that. What I failed to mention at the beginning of the program is that I have something for the frog pond this week. Now, those of you who watched last week will not be surprised by my decision to frog my surprise party shawl by Helen Stewart. I haven't done that yet, but I am going to. This is the shawl, and it's almost finished. I had planned to run bands of these colors, a couple rows of garter stitch of each color along the bottom to finish the shawl off. It's just my opinion that especially this yellow and possibly the bright fuchsia at the beginning of the color sequence, to me they're just a bit too bright for this design, and to me it makes it look clown-like. I heard back from a few of you and had varying opinions on whether I should keep it or frog it. One of you mentioned that you couldn't see the yellow in the variegated yarn. Maybe that makes it a little bit clearer there. It's not quite as bright as this yellow is. It's more of a gold tone. And then there's this fuchsia and purple in the variegated, which is why I thought these colors would go really well together. And I still think they could in the right project, but I just think the concentration of these chevrons just kind of overwhelm the shawl, I guess is what it comes down to. And so I am going to frog this, put the yarn away. If at first you don't succeed, try again, and that's what I'll do. I'll choose another pattern. I may use them together, I may just use them separately. Not sure, but that's the last time you'll see that project. So it's always kind of sad when you frog something because you have put a lot of time and energy into making it. On the other hand, when I'm really pretty sure I'm not going to wear something or use it, I just don't see the point in keeping it around, and I'd rather repurpose the yarn for something else that I like better. So not too much regret there. what I have up and coming is the November socks for the Grocery Girls Sock Bash. And this is a pattern called Stepping into Fall by Sylvia Harding that I've been wanting to knit for a while. I think I first saw them on the Fat Squirrel Speaks podcast a while ago, and I thought about knitting them for fall socks, and I didn't have quite the right striped yarn to use for it. But this month's theme, or the sorry, like I say, discombobulated. This week's sort of thing that can earn you an extra entry is to do scrappy socks. And so what I'm actually going to do is call these my Stepping into Winter socks. And I am going to choose some yarn scraps in wintry colors and knit these up. And if I'm holding it close enough, and hopefully with the photocopying or the printing, you can see that each section of stripes has a different stitch texture, different stitch pattern that you do there. And so they're fun textured socks using lots of different stitch patterns, and I just think that makes it more interesting to knit. So what I'm going to do is knit them two at a time concurrently, and well, separate needles but at the same time, and just use up some different sock yarn scraps on those. And I think it'll be a fun pair to work on throughout the month. So I'm looking forward to getting going on those. I still have to go through my scraps and decide which yarns I'm going to use for them. And I might even make some of those decisions just as I go along. Although I probably won't, because face it, I'm not real good at random and impulsive. A little bit about what I'm reading. I have to reach over here. I am continuing with Origin by Dan Brown. I am enjoying it very much. Part of the book takes part in Barcelona, which I had the good fortune to visit back in 2007, I guess. And so it's always neat to read a book that has places where you've been, so you can relate just a little bit more to it. So yeah, I guess I'm closing in on about 3/4 of the way of being done. So maybe I'll get some time this weekend to finish it up. In any case, it shouldn't take me too long to be done with that. And then I might move on to the latest from Louise Penny that I downloaded for on the Kindle app before we left for holidays a while ago, and I haven't got to yet. Or I might pull out another, the next Agatha Christie in line. We'll just sort of see where I'm at in my reading preferences when that happens. So that about does it for what I've been making and reading this week. So let's move on to what else has been going on in my life. Friday night, we went over to my daughter and son-in-law's place for a bit of a Halloween party. So Cameron and I dressed up in our 1970s costumes. And I also took over the costumes I'd been working on for my two granddaughters. The girls were all doing an Alice in Wonderland theme. So I had sewn a little pinafore and put some lace on a dress for my youngest granddaughter, who was going to be Alice in Wonderland. And then I did an underskirt for my older granddaughter, who was going to be the Queen of Hearts. And then my daughter was the Mad Hatter. So I'll put a picture of them here. And so I had to laugh because my older granddaughter, she tried on her underskirt and then very politely said, "It's really nice, Grandma, but I like my costume better without it." And it made me realize it was more her mom's idea for that to have an underskirt than it was hers. So I said that's fine. I wasn't going to make her wear it if she didn't want to. So it immediately came off, and then she didn't wear it out on Halloween either. So I'm sure she'll find a use for it. They might play dress up or something, but I just thought that was kind of funny. Then Saturday, my husband worked. I had just kind of had a I got all my bunch of house cleaning done in the morning, and then I had time to knit in the afternoon, and that's when I did most of the work on my Chimera cardigan. And then Sunday was a beautiful fall day, and I know I had mentioned that I was hoping we'd be able to go out for a drive while the fall colors were still good, and that's in fact what we did. My husband and I took a drive up to Manning Park, which is about an hour and 15-minute drive by highway from us, east into the interior, away from the coast into the interior of the province. Manning Park is a provincial park, and it's a place that we have spent many very good times with our kids. When they were young, we would go camping there or just go up for day trips. We've done a number of hikes there. It's just a really beautiful park and not too far away from us. So we kind of have missed the best of the color, I think, but it was still really beautiful, especially when the sun came out and would shine on some of the really golden, I think they're aspen trees, just beautiful golden leaves, and they just looked gorgeous. So we went to the day lodge and had lunch there, and then we went just down the road from there to Lightning Lakes, and it's there's a day use area, and then there's also a couple of campgrounds. So we walked around. I think there's 3 lakes. It's kind of a chain of lakes. So we walked around the first lake, and we actually were surprised to see in some areas there was a little bit of snow along the trail, and in a couple of places where the lake was really shallow and still, we could see a skim of ice on the lake. And yet it was a bit cool, but warm enough to walk around. We just had, trying to think, I just had a hoodie and a long t-shirt on and a scarf. That really helped. My husband had wished he had brought a cowl or scarf with him, although he warmed up as we walked. So it was just a lovely afternoon there. I'll put a few pictures in to show you the lake, and at one point we could hear these birds, and all of a sudden we had I think 4 whiskey jacks or gray jays around us. They are very people-friendly birds, and if they're used to being fed, if you're having a picnic or something, it won't be long before you find them around begging. And so even though we didn't have any food and we weren't feeding them, they hung around for a little bit. So I got a little bit of a few pictures of them for you. And we saw a couple of women that were riding horses along the trail, which just looked really nice too. So we kind of were limited in our time there because that evening we were going to my son's house to, his girlfriend had invited all of us, all the adults. It was an adult-only thing. So my other son and daughter and son-in-law, she'd invited us all to have dinner to celebrate my son's birthday. So this is my baby. He turned 28 on Halloween, so that's a bit weird to think that my youngest is almost out of his 20s. Anyway, we had a really nice dinner and some adult time. It's always nice to have the kids too for family get-togethers, but it's kind of nice to spend time with just them as adults. Really actually enjoyed it quite a lot. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I babysat the kids for the full days while my daughter was working. So the first couple of days I had my youngest granddaughter here at my house for most of the day, and then I took her back home in time to get the kids after school. She's almost 3, and she's she's just into everything. She's stealth. So you got to really watch her. So I thought it was, well, I can laugh about it now. At the time, I was a little bit annoyed. I was in my office where my computer is, which is literally across the hall and a doorway over from the doorway into my kitchen. So not very far at all. And she'd been in the computer room with me, and she left and kind of listened. And a minute later, I heard her heading downstairs, and I had the TV on down there, and that's where a lot of the toys are kept. So I thought, okay, so I finished what I was doing. It was no more than a minute later, and I went down to check on her. So sure enough, she was sitting on the couch watching TV, and I look in her hands, and she's cupping an egg in her hand. So the little monkey had gone into the kitchen and opened the fridge and taken an egg out of the egg carton and carried it downstairs with her. Why she decided it was a good idea to have an egg, I'm not sure. But she's obsessed with going in the fridge. And my daughter and son-in-law have a lock on their fridge at home. But she can get in mine pretty easily, so I kind of constantly at her to stay out of Grandma's fridge. But she managed to get in there and get that egg without me being any the wiser. So anyway, it's kind of fun because she's just talking more and more all the time. And her latest is I love something. If you're having anything, I love cookies, or I love cereal. She saw a picture of my sister on Facebook, and I asked her if she knew who that was. So she told me, yeah, it was Auntie Janine. She goes, I love Auntie Janine. Her other one is, it's delicious. So she'll take a bite of something she's eating, and everything is delicious. And then the other one is, Mommy told me, or Daddy told me. So she'll come up with all sorts of things. So anyway, she is a joy, but she is a handful too. Wednesday morning, I took her, they live right close to the elementary school. And so I took her over there for the morning for, it's called Strong Start. It's a government program, and it's kind of a preschool. And so the parents stay with the kids and do activities with them, and then they have a program coordinator who does some activities with them as well, like stories and taking them in the gym and stuff like that. So it's always good. She really loves going to play with her friends. So Tuesday night was Halloween, and so I just stayed over at my daughter and son-in-law's after they got home from work, and my husband met me there. So we just had some supper with them, and then my husband and I went out with the two younger grandkids and our daughter to go trick-or-treating, and our older granddaughter was going out with a friend. So that was really fun. They all got dressed up in their costumes for real. So I'll put a picture here of the three of them. Jessica said it was okay. So you can see that my grandson was a ninja. And so he had these two swords that kind of went in a case on his back. And but he wanted to carry them around. And he ended up giving one of his swords to his little sister to carry. And so I thought it was quite funny because my daughter said that turned her from Alice in Wonderland into Malice in Wonderland. So I thought that was pretty funny. She had a little basket with the white rabbit in it that she used to collect her treats. And then as it collected some, we emptied them into another bag that her mom carried. So the kids had a lot of fun. We have good friends that live close by to where my daughter and son-in-law live, and they really deck their house up for Halloween big time. So I've always seen pictures like on Facebook and stuff, but never actually seen it in person. So it was kind of cool to have the opportunity to go there and go trick-or-treating. That was our first stop, and to see it all lit up, and they've got different things that are moving and noises going, and it was cool. So all in all, the kids only really went door to door, probably over the course of 2 blocks. And that was plenty for them. They got some treats, and enough walking, and we headed home. So it was fairly early evening. I think we were home before 8 o'clock. And I saw a few trick-or-treaters near, like on the street as I was driving home. Now, typically our neighborhood is very quiet on Halloween, which is why we didn't bother sticking around. It's way more fun going out with the grandkids and seeing all the different costumes and stuff out on the street than it is to stay at home and maybe have a handful of trick-or-treaters here. So, but when I came back, I did put the light on and the pumpkin out, and just had one set of trick-or-treaters. So I'm glad we at least had someone this year. We've had some years where we've been home and we haven't had anybody. So had one viewer say that Halloween is not a big deal in England, and it's something we've always, I think it's more of a North American holiday. It's certainly something that I took part in as a kid. We always had, some thought went into our costume, and my mom sewed costumes for us when we were young, and I made a lot of costumes for my kids over the years. Very rarely bought them. There weren't really good homemade, or good, to me, very good store-bought ones available, and they were quite expensive. So it was usually more economical to make something and have something also that could be handed down from kid to kid to kid. Recently, it seems like Halloween's getting a lot bigger, and I think probably the retail industry is driving that. We actually had this year for the first time an old store in the mall that had been closed down, and it just opened as a pop-up shop for Halloween. So it was a bunch of Halloween costumes and different decorations that you would put either indoors or on your to decorate your house or your lawn. And certainly in the last number of years, you see a lot more houses around that really decorate their yards and houses with lots of different Halloween decorations. Like my daughter and son-in-law had quite a few in their yard, like tombstones and ghosts and pumpkins and things. And their neighbor across the street had this graveyard thing going on, and even had fake smoke coming out of a grave, and like pretty elaborate. And then, as I say, our good friends they really go all out and have tons of different decorations. So it is fun to see. It's certainly a lot more fun than when I was a kid. And pardon me, you'd have your porch light on and a jack-o'-lantern outside on your porch or on your fence post, and that would signal that you were sort of participating in Halloween. There was not the same degree of decorating. So I think it's really fun for the kids now to have that. I'm quite content to just have a pumpkin and my porch light still, but it's fun. I do enjoy it, seeing all the decorations and such. Trying to think. So that was Tuesday, babysat Wednesday. Then last night had curling. And so my sister usually, I'm on her team, and she usually picks me up on the way. And we have another friend that also curls. And this week she came to pick me up with my sister Allison. And but we had bar duty after, our team had bar duty after curling. So you're there for another couple of hours tending bar. And you do it like once every half. So it's just a little something you have to do a couple of times a season. So this friend said she didn't mind staying while we did bar duty, and then she'd drive us home. But then the snow started, and it was coming down really heavily. And she lives on the hill and was concerned about getting home because she didn't have her snow tires on. So we said, no problem, you go. My brother-in-law's team, which is the team that my husband curls on, was curling at 9 o'clock. And our bar duty ended at 8:30. So we just said we'd stick around and watch the guys play and then get a ride home with them. And my husband wasn't playing because he injured his foot a few weeks ago, and it's still not okay to play on. So we finished our bar duty, and then we sat and watched these guys curl, and then sat with them and the other team for a drink after. So it was basically midnight when I got home last night. We'd been at the curling rink since 4 o'clock that afternoon, so it was kind of a long, unexpectedly long evening. We had a terrible game. We did awful, but my husband's team, they tied in the end. They had a really good close game and tied, so it was entertaining to watch, but I think both of us would have been much happier at home. So I think that's about it for this week. I have no idea what's coming in the week ahead. I have no real plans, so it's kind of nice to have what should be a fairly uneventful week ahead. My husband wasn't sure if he was going to work tomorrow or not. We are going to some friend's house tomorrow night for a housewarming party. They've just bought a new place about a month or two ago, so we're going to go and check it out, and we should see a number of our friends from our ball team and such that we haven't seen for a while, so looking forward to that. But yeah, other than that, no real plans. I do believe that next weekend we are going to be going to Victoria to see my mother-in-law and brother-in-law and sister-in-law, and so I suspect that I will not be podcasting next week. And actually, I wouldn't mind delaying it anyway until about the following Tuesday or Wednesday, because I really do prefer to record midweek. And somehow I got onto a Friday schedule, and Fridays really aren't the best day for recording, simply because it takes quite a while to record and then edit and upload. And we usually reserve Friday nights for Happy Night, which is our sort of date night for my husband and I, and have a nice bottle of wine and have appies for dinner and kind of catch up. So I'm pretty sure that this podcast won't actually make it out till, or make it up online till sometime tomorrow. But I'm gonna end here, go have some lunch while it's uploading on my computer, and then I should be able to get the editing done before my husband gets home from work. But if not, it will probably be sometime tomorrow when it gets finished and up online. So you won't know the difference, but I will. So have yourself a lovely week. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to watch and taking the time to comment. I always appreciate it very much. And yeah, have a great week. Hope it is nicer weather where you are. It's really cold. It's cold and windy out today, with some more snow flurries expected or predicted over the next few days. So definitely kind of our introduction to winter for sure. It's pretty to look at though, and it's nice and cozy in the house. So anyway, now I'm babbling, rambling, all that. So yeah, have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.